Okay, so consciousness, right? It's like what's really going on up there? We're diving into la conciencia, un viaje a través de la mente humana, and I gotta say, the way it breaks down consciousness right from the start, super interesting.
Yeah, it kind of grabs you, doesn't it? It's not just like, oh, you're awake, you're conscious. It's about being aware, not just of ourselves, but the whole world around us, too.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
how do you even explain that feeling of being aware, of being like me? A source breaks it down into these different dimensions. Self-awareness really stuck with
That's
me.
huge, right? The source is saying it's more than just knowing we exist, it's realizing we're all unique with our own thoughts and feelings, and that we have choices. We're not just passengers.
And speaking of navigating, there's that environmental awareness thing, which is a little less, you know, deep. It's how we take in everything around us, what we see, hear, smell, all that sensory overload.
And it's all about survival, the source says. Not just pretty sunsets, but like slamming on the brakes when a car honks or, when you're caught in a downpour without an umbrella. Our brains are processing constantly to keep us safe.
But then it gets even trippier, right? There's reflective consciousness, which is basically thinking about thinking. It's like our brains are working on this whole other level.
That's where introspection comes in, right?
Yeah.
Questioning things,
Yeah.
growing. The source says without that, personal growth wouldn't even be possible. We'd just be reacting without ever stopping to think why. It's kind of wild, that we can step back and be like, whoa, brain, why are you doing that? And then the source goes into these altered states of consciousness.
Yeah, and it gets specific. It's not just a general definition. It's like, okay, there's dreaming, meditation,
Hmm.
even the effects of certain, well, substances, right? Each one changing how we see reality in a different way.
Like the source is saying, hey, what you think is real might not be so fixed after all. But we've covered the what of consciousness. Let's talk when. People have been debating this for ages, right?
Oh, totally. And the source gets into all that history. We're talking ancient Greece, Plato versus Aristotle even.
Now, those are some philosophical heavy hitters. What were their takes, according to the source? Well, Plato, he saw consciousness as this, like key to truth. It connected us to something bigger. Aristotle, on the other hand, he tied it to logic and reason, our ability to observe the world around us.
Two very different views, but both emphasizing just how powerful consciousness is. And then the source takes us to the 17th century to Descartes. Talk about a game changer.
Right. Descartes throws a wrench in everything with his whole, I think, therefore I am. The source points out how that shifted the focus to individual experience. Like, even doubting proves you're a thinking being.
And that focus on the self is what leads to psychology as a field, right? Trying to study consciousness scientifically. It's wild, right? We go from debating if consciousness even exists to trying to like put it in a test tube and measure it.
And the source gets into how psychology really took off in the 1800s. But it wasn't a smooth ride. There was this whole thing with behaviorism, trying to study the mind by basically ignoring it.
Wait, what? How does that even work?
Well, they thought you could only study what you could see, right?
Yeah.
Behaviors, thoughts and feelings, not so much. The source points out that they kind of miss the whole inner experience thing.
It's like good luck understanding a book if you only read the back cover, right?
Exactly, you're missing the story, and that's what happened. The source describes how behaviorism just hit a wall. You can't explain why people do things without, looking at what they think and believe.
So what changed? Did everyone just give up on psychology?
Nope. Things shifted, thankfully. The source talks about how other approaches came in, like humanistic psychology, cognitive stuff. They brought the focus back to what's going on inside.
It's like the pendulum swung back to, hey, there's a whole inner world that matters. But okay, fast forward to NW neuroscience. That's got to be blowing minds.
For real, the source is all about the crazy progress. We're not just philosophizing anymore. We're looking at the brain in action.
It's insane. Brain scans, EEGs.
Yeah.
We can see which parts light up when you're like happy or listening to music.
But here's the kicker, the hard problem of consciousness. Still a thing.
Hard problem. Okay, now you have to explain.
So we can map out the brain, right? See the neurons firing. But the source points out, how do those physical things become, like feelings? We know where red is processed, but what makes it feel red?
Wow, yeah. It's like we know the mechanics, but not the magic, I guess.
Exactly. The source makes it clear we've come a long way, but we haven't connected those dots yet from the physical stuff to what it's actually like to be conscious.
So the search continues. But hey, the source doesn't just live in a lab, does it? It talks about consciousness in our regular messy lives, too.
Definitely. The source reminds us this isn't just some abstract idea, it's everywhere. Emotions, choices we make, relationships.
So how does it connect those dots? From brain stuff to, like, Tuesday afternoon.
Well, it talks about emotions a lot. It's not just that we feel them, we're aware of them. And that changes things.
It's like we can choose how to react instead of just being, like, controlled by our feelings.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And that's powerful, the source argues. The more aware we are of our emotions, the better we understand them.
It's like hitting pause before you react, you know? Yeah, okay, I'm angry, but what am I going to do about it?
And that takes us to decisions. When we're on autopilot, not really present, the source says those are the choices we usually regret later.
Oh, tell me about it. We've all been there.
But consciousness, being present, it helps us make choices that actually line up with, what we want, our values, our goals.
So more intention, less just reacting to life.
Right, moving from reaction to, conscious choice. The source says that's a recipe for a better life, but here's where it gets really cool. It goes beyond just psychology and science.
We spilled the tea. What else is there?
Culture,
Yeah.
philosophy. The source gets into how all that shapes what we think consciousness is.
That makes sense. Like one size doesn't fit all, right?
Right, for sure. The source dives into how different cultures see consciousness totally differently, tying it to spirituality, religion.
So it's not just about ME and MY brain. It's
Yeah.
about how we understand this huge EE thing as like a whole society.
And that's just it, right? The source makes it clear. Consciousness is woven into everything. Art, music. It's part of what makes us human.
It's like consciousness is this invisible thread connecting everything, how we experience the world, how we understand each other. It's all tied together.
And the source really gets that, It
Yeah.
doesn't try to oversimplify things. It celebrates the mystery of it all while still acknowledging all the amazing progress we've made.
Yeah, it's kind of humbling, right? The more we learn, the more we realize how much is still out there.
Totally. The source frames consciousness as this incredible journey, not a destination. We're meant to explore it, not just solve it. It's about appreciating the vastness of human experience, both inside and out.
So to everyone listening, next time you're, I don't know, staring at the clouds or just lost in thought for a minute, take a second to think about that feeling. That's consciousness right there.
That awareness, that ability to be present and reflect, it's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. It's a gift of mystery.
Yeah.
And like the source says, the more we explore it, the closer we get to understanding what it really means to be human.